Hello, I'm Robert, and welcome to Separate Path Ministries coming to you from the Sonoran Desert. This presentation is entitled Your Time. It is to explain why you are here on this YouTube site at this date and at this time. It is not by accident. I am sure that all of us at one time have read a book or looked at a movie on TV that took place in another era and wondered what it would have been like to have lived back then. However, I've heard some go a step further and say that they more identify with those eras than with today and would much rather have lived then. They were a better fit for that time. Look, we are here because God thought this was the best time period and place for us to be the most effective for His work. How can we know this? Look at where and when He placed His Son. It was no accident or random roll of the dice of history. It was already planned, as we can see from the many passages in the Old Testament. However, John the Baptist proclaimed the coming when the time for it was imminent. This shows that it was pre-planned down to the location and time. The timing was right. What was needed for Christ's ministry to spread? Number one, a multilingual environment of major international languages. 2, a widespread transportation system. 3, a way of communicating the word simply and conveniently for all. So given these three, it seems as though Christ should have been born today. After all, there are lots of major languages around that are globally understood, but languages are quickly translated these days regardless. Transportation is not an issue. There are lots of communications means, the web, social media, printed, TV, radio, etc. The word can be communicated inexpensively. So why not today? Well, suppose that Christ was born today. I'm sure He could fill auditoriums or stadiums, be a guest speaker on major news networks, and perhaps be born into an oppressive society where He would be looked upon worldwide as their liberator. Christ the celebrity. That's just it. He would be a celebrity and people would flock to see Him, the miracle worker, the liberator, and not the message. The message would be lost. There was some of that in Jesus' time. I mean, look at the Palm Sunday crowd, but the communications mechanisms were not widespread enough, and so the diversion away from His word was more contained. Let's look at the flip side. Suppose Jesus would have been born into a remote Amazon tribe at really any time in history. The word would have never gone beyond a few hundred people at most. There have been no or little contact with the outside world. So let's look at why God's timing was perfect for Jesus. Number one, a multilingual environment of international languages. Greek, the lingua franca of international commerce in the Mediterranean world. It took the word among the maritime areas. Latin, the language of the Roman Empire, which stretched just a few years after Christ's death from the Scottish border in the north to the Atlantic on the west, the northern border of Sudan in the south, and Iraq in the east. This brought the word to inland areas. Hebrew, used throughout the Greek and Roman world, the language of scholars. Aramaic, the language of Jesus. This was used primarily in the Near East, in what is today Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Georgia, and even into southern Russia, really the eastern extent of the Western world. 2, transportation. The Roman road system was the best the world had ever known at that time. Some are still in use today. Imagine, will our interstates still be around in more than 2,000 years with little or no maintenance? They can barely last a few years now without it. And the ocean. Think about the stories about Paul's travels by sea. Shipbuilding was a major industry. There was no printing press. What? That seems to make no sense. Would it not have been better had there been a printing press that could have rapidly sent out the word in different languages? It seems a paradox, or contrary to logic, to say it was best there was not one. Well, let's take a look at that. What we do know is that what we have in the Bible is only a small portion of Jesus' full ministry. He performed many other miracles, gave more teachings, and had more encounters with a wide variety of people. John 20:30 states, Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book. John 21:25 states, Jesus did many other things. If they were all written in books, I don't suppose there would be enough room in the whole world for all the books. Wouldn't it be nice if we could know what they would have contained? I would like to know. However, would we read them, or could we read them? If we had a book in our bookcase at home that contained multiple volumes that took up the whole bookcase, would we read all that? How many people could afford it? Ebooks are not the answer. It's a new phenomena that many in the world really do not have access to, and one would still have to scroll through thousands of pages. Would people still read all that? That is John's point. However, there was a creative solution that worked perfectly into their time and ours. Written manuscripts had to be manually copied. Obviously, the longer the work, the fewer the copies, the higher the expense. If all of Christ's ministry was written manually into manuscripts, it would have been so much that there might have only been one copy, or very few that would be lost in history or have never gone beyond the scholar's walls. So a balance needed to be reached where the information contained was limited but sufficient. The manuscripts produced could be transported quickly with little cost. If there had been a printing press, imagine hauling volumes and volumes of books of Christ's entire ministry over the Roman roads or taking up limited spaces on boats. Who could afford them anyway? They certainly would not have been portable or convenient to read. The written word would have simply been the object of academic researchers gathering desert dust on the bookshelves of the great ancient libraries of the world. Also, as there were few initial copies of the manuscripts, they helped develop the word. Paul's sermons and letters were read to the early churches. Paul and his assistants did not pass out mass-produced copies of his letters to the members like church bulletins and then say, read this and go home. Instead, they generated discussion of the how to do it of Christ's teachings, guidance passed on to us today. So the absence of a printing press led to a Bible centuries later that was portable, convenient, less cost to reach more people, but still contained all the information we need. The relatively small size can help us with retaining the message. We can remember all of Jesus' miracles and sermons in it, but imagine if there were hundreds and hundreds we had to read. Would the core message be lost? So you can see the many factors that came together to make Jesus' time the perfect one. That's just not coincidence, is it? Also, it's just not coincidence that you are here at this time either. Jeremiah 1:5 and 11:29 show that God knew you before you were born and that He has plans for you. So after you leave this video posting, go look at a movie or read a book about times past and enjoy them. However, remember, that was their time. This is yours and God's. Thanks